Alright, welcome back to the Sonata Chronicles vlog, episode 26.
26.
You know, that's 2 away from the Dodeca Ocho.
Dodeca Ocho.
Dodeca Ocho!
But this is 26.
It is. I'm a little sad now. But I'll get over it.
Just look forward to 2 weeks from now.
2 weeks from now, it's the Dodeca Ocho time.
Yes.
It's gonna be awesome. So, last week we kind of didn't do much, and you deserved it. This week, we got more questions, which is good. So you have to keep giving us questions. And if you're thinking, well, someone else will ask a question, it doesn't matter. You ask a question. Every single one of you, and we'll pick the best one, and we'll laugh at the others.
And we'll go through them all, even the ones we mock.
Yes.
So, your question will get answered, even if it is mocked in private.
Yes. But we won't mock you in public, so you won't ever feel stupid.
Right, because we wouldn't do that to you.
No, we're nice. But one of the questions that we did pick out for this week was, in relation to the Sonata Chronicles and the fact that it's going to be a trilogy, what are the troubles that you've been facing writing the sequels?
Well, I've never done it before, so it's kind of new territory to come back to the same characters and kind of do the same thing. And one of the biggest things is, you know, if good sci-fi and good fantasy, I think, establishes rules. The reality has these rules. And to keep it feeling consistent and like one continuous story, one congruous story, you have to respect those rules.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a real struggle there when you're trying to write and you're trying to, you know, be creative and tell a good story, saying, oh, but I can't do that because that's breaking the rules that I've created, you know. And if you're going to change the rules, something catastrophic needs to happen in order to do that. So one of the things is staying creative inside of a structure that I've already built for myself.
Now, do you go back and reference those rules in the beginning so that we have a sort of a refresher course like most? I
do, yeah. I mean, you know, and a lot of times, like, you shouldn't... It's like time travel in movies, and one of the things I always tell my writing students is, you know, when I used to teach was, you know, time travel is boring. Explaining how time travel works is boring. No one wants to know. You find it fascinating, no one else does.
I find it fascinating.
If you go and you watch Back to the Future, they don't they don't go into how the flux capacitor works. They don't go, that's the flux capacitor.
He fell and hit his head, and then he had the idea of the flux capacitor, and that's how it works. So if you fall and hit your head, draw something that looks like the atomical picture of a
atomical.
Yeah. I hate you so much. Oh, that's not the right word, is it?
But if you, so all he says is that's the flux capacitor. It allows us to travel through time, and there's the rule.
And then it runs off garbage in a second.
Right, but it's still the flux capacitor that allows you to travel through time.
Yeah.
So I don't go in. I don't go in a lot to the rules, but I have my characters obey the rules. You know.
Now, do you find?
And I'm not talking about laws or that kind of thing, because some characters break laws and they do bad things. But the general rules of, if, you know, Constant uses magic, magic works this way, so Constant has to use it that way.
Right. Now, I know, like, when you're reading a story, like a very long series, about every book they go back and kind of revisit the last book because it's 2-3 years in between novels. Whereas movies, it typically isn't like that. Yes, we all waited 20 years for Tron, and we were fans. We were all amazed by that. It was a beautiful movie.
It was okay.
I loved it.
I know you did.
But I also loved the first one. Wasn't
the first one was good.
Yeah.
Second one was okay.
So, like, regardless of the fact that that one had 20 years between it, you know, if you think about, like, The Matrix, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, even The Hobbit just coming out, there's maybe a year in between those sequels. So it's still very fresh in your mind, so they don't have to spend all that much time, if any, revisiting what happened on the last movie. Especially because also at that point in time you have the DVD releases. I think they do
2 years between them. Between the releases.
Yeah, well, I know that...
I don't think there's going to be another Hobbit this year, but it'll be 20...
Right. In the end, when they did Harry Potter 7.1 and 7.2, it was a year apart, basically. But
Right.
again, they also allow you to purchase the DVD, rewatch it. They allow you to visit yourself, so that may be also something that we do in the sequels. Allow you to revisit that.
I try to revisit the characters without revisiting without re-showing events from the last movie, if that makes sense. So, you know, instead of going back and showing characters in the last movie,
Mm-hmm.
I reintroduce them in a way that reminds you, oh yeah, that's Constant, and Constant is this and that and did this, and that's hi Zeke, and that's Almet, and he did this, that, and the other thing, you know.
The other thing I think that we should touch on before we end, because we have gone over 5 minutes, is that with every story, in order for it to be a good story, at least in my book, every character, all the important characters, have to have some form of growth, because you don't want that character to stagnate, especially in sequels.
Right.
So is that another thing you're struggling with? Is the growth of the character from the first movie, showing his growth there, and then bringing that growth in, and then having him grow more before the third?
I don't know. I don't think so. The struggle is, yeah, you need growth, but the struggle is making the growth come out of relationship instead of just, and now he realizes this.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You don't want a public announcement at the end of the episode.
Right.
Go
It
Joe.
needs to be the interactions that fuel the character arc and the growth of the character and the way the character changes and develops over time. You know, if our main characters all met for the most part over the story, all Met's interactions with Najri and with Yura and with Leli and with Fawcett and with Constant and Karios and the Vocaire, those things should develop him and move him from where he begins to where he ends over the 3 movies.
Sure.
And so the problem, you know, a lot of movies, because of structure, they just rely on structure and they say, and now, you know, and pretty much they just, and now the character is enlightened, you know, and then enlightened again, because it's appropriate for the time we're in the movie. And the real struggle is getting that timing right, but then having those moments be born out of character.
Right.
And the way the characters interact, instead of just forcing it.
I agree. You should caress it into enlightenment instead of forcing it into enlightenment. It works better for everyone.
Sometimes you have to enlighten it gently.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes forcefully is fun too, but...
Yes.
Grr. So that's all the time
That's
we're going to have for
dirty.
today. Way past time. And so dirty. But we'll be back next week with an insignificant 27. Nothing fun about that. And then it's the Dodeca Ocho.
Yes.
So,
what was that?
that's the double reminder saying, well, you are stupid. Apparently we don't know how to read a clock.
Alright, so this is your next 10-minute plus 5-minute vlog, so...
That's right. Remember to ask those questions so we can mock you in private.
Yes, and answer them in public and go over time.
Yes.
Enjoy!